Good evening and welcome to our show, Women to Women. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We have a very special guest with a unique twist to what she does. But before I introduce her, I'd like to thank our sponsors for tonight's show. We'd like to thank Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, and it is delicious. We'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils and balsamic vinegar, as well as carsonnow.org. If it's any news about Carson City that you're looking for 24/7, go to carsonnow.org. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Carol Green. Carol, welcome to our show tonight.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You know, Carol has been a long time, I think, her name coming up for this show. She has an interesting job that probably today many women would like to know. How did you ever get interested in this, and what does it take to become chief of the fire department? Okay, so we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, and I'll let her give you her full title. But right now, Carol, before the show, you were telling me that you're originally from California?
Yep, Bay Area.
The Bay Area. All right, and growing up as a kid in the San Francisco Bay Area, for your generation, we're two separate generations, okay?
Okay.
When I was in the Bay Area in San Francisco, I was watching one of the John Wayne films that was an airplane show, okay? And it was back in the 1950s, and I haven't been back since. I know things have changed, okay? What is the Bay Area like today? Or when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, it was still not as big as it is today. It was still fairly small. I actually loved growing up there. Friendly environment. Just played outside all day like normal kids. Well, kids don't do it so much anymore, I guess.
Right.
But spent a lot of time outside. I was from a family of 5. So brothers and sisters, I was the youngest of all of them.
Is there a benefit to being the youngest out of 5?
Is there a benefit?
Yeah.
Sure. You certainly learn what not to do. You can watch the older ones and learn how to stay out of trouble. And
let them take the blame for everything right at the moment.
Sure.
Okay.
And you're always going to be the baby. I'm still the baby, no matter what.
Okay. What were some of the things that you learned not to do with your older brothers and sisters? Was it the brother who was the oldest, or
No,
a sister?
A sister.
All right.
Yep. And she was fairly wild. So I just learned, what not to do with my parents. Kind of watched her growing up and my brothers, and
they were good teachers.
Sure.
And your parents, I think, those are our first teachers, but brothers and sisters can be so helpful in so many different ways.
Yep.
And you always think kind of as a kid that however it's done in your family, it must be the same way in other families. And I found out that's not true at all.
It certainly isn't. Nope. I had a super traditional family, actually. My mom stayed home until I was in high school, and my dad worked.
That's wonderful.
So, yep.
That's wonderful.
It was great.
So as you were growing up, what were some of the interests in the Bay Area? Were you a sports, an athlete?
Yeah, I like sports. I was obviously probably a tomboy. Liked a lot of sports, just like being outside, playing with my friends. Did cross country, track, that kind of thing in high school.
Okay, so a pretty normal all-American gal.
Yeah.
All right. And when you come from California, just as if you come from Minnesota, you have to learn to work with the weather.
Yep.
Whatever it's like, those are the things that you find to do and enjoy in that kind of weather.
Sure.
Coming from the Midwest, we had a lot of snow, and so winter was long, and you had to find different activities with different kids, and backyards were a famous place for the snow forts and the snowmen and all that.
Yeah.
So when you were in high school, were you starting to think about what you would like to do, or did that come much later?
Honestly, no. When I was in high school, I think by high school standards now, I was really fairly naive and pretty innocent.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
People who know me now don't believe it, but... and I really had no clue what I wanted to do.
And there's a certain protection that's given by your older brothers and sisters for the little one.
Yep.
And they have pretty strong feelings about making sure that others or circumstances don't get to you, like maybe they had to go through an experience.
Right.
Okay, so you're well protected. So when you left high school, where did you graduate from?
Lee High School in San Jose, California.
All right.
Yep. And I actually was like a year out of high school. I was married.
Okay.
And we both worked full-time in restaurants.
All right.
And pretty much thought we had life by the tail, and did that for a while. When I was younger, I watched, and this is going to sound really silly, the TV show Emergency.
Okay,
and
sure.
Thought that was really cool.
It was neat. It was a good program.
Yeah. And thought maybe that's what I wanted to do. But I came from such a traditional family where, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, dad worked, mom didn't.
Right.
And it kind of, it wasn't that I was discouraged at all, but it was just something that I was like, I probably can't do that.
Really out of the realm of what they had for females to do,
Yes.
to think about doing.
Yep.
All right. So how did you work your way into Nevada?
Just actually got very tired of the Bay Area.
Okay.
And just realized that we didn't want to be there anymore and moved to Nevada. But at that time, I was already a paramedic.
Now, your training as a paramedic, okay, so you're in the emergency field.
Yes.
And there must have been something besides the television program, although those can influence us a lot, that also perked your interest in helping people in emergency situations. Anything else to fit in there?
Yeah, I kind of knew I wanted to do it, and then got sidetracked and, was working in restaurants, and I was making fairly decent money, and thought I was going to go to culinary school.
Okay.
And in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I want to be more in emergency services. And
that's a gift, by the way. That's a gift.
It's definitely a calling.
Yes.
And actually, it's kind of a strange story. My friend left one day from the restaurant and came back in the back door like maybe 10 minutes after she left. And she was really dirty and disheveled. And I was like, well, what happened? And she's like, I got hit by a car. It just happened.
Oh, my
and she
word.
ran back to the restaurant.
For help.
And yeah.
Stability.
And she actually had a tire track across her stomach. And
for heaven's sakes.
I thought I was like, that is the neatest thing I've ever seen.
Tire track?
Yeah.
All right.
I know. And I just thought, wow, and then I saw the paramedics come in and work with her, and I said, you know what? That's what I really want to do, and I don't want to go to culinary school anymore. And
did she survive so you could thank her?
She did great. She actually did fine. I mean, she was very lucky. But that's all it took. And,
Isn't that amazing?
That's
really an episode that most of us don't have in our lives.
I know.
So that calling was always in you, but it took some special circumstances for you to really respond back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you come to Nevada. How so with Incline Village?
Incline's pretty far into my career in Nevada.
All right. So before we reach Incline, how long were you a paramedic?
I've been a paramedic since 1987.
A long time.
A long time, yes.
And in that period of time, you have seen a lot.
Yes.
And you have dealt with many different sets of circumstances and sets of personalities.
Yes.
If you go back in your memory and say to yourself, there are a lot of things I could talk about, I could share, but probably one of the most momentous or the circumstances that made a big impact upon me for my future thinking as well as for my love of this profession would be what? With adults, with children?
Well, I mean, obviously, calls with children are very difficult. They are just super hard. You're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make a lot of sense because children are innocent. Some of the things you can justify with adults because a lot of times adults that we see don't take care of themselves.
Or make poor decisions.
Or make poor decisions.
Behaviors.
Yeah, but when a child is involved, usually, I mean, sometimes with children they make poor decisions, but they don't understand the impact.
And it tears you up.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
What have you learned to do, Carol, with yourself so that I know your training as a paramedic helps to stabilize you in all those circumstances. What is it about the training that really helps you become an expert paramedic?
What is it about the training? I mean, it's just, the training's just a very basic part of it. And then it's just being out there and working and running the calls and just doing it every day.
Getting your toes in the water, so to speak.
Yep, you could be super book smart and get 100 on all your tests, but it's totally different when you go out there and you work with people.
Okay, going through my mind right now is a scenario. I'm the victim. I'm the one who's hurt. And it takes a lot from a paramedic to get us to calm down. The ones that are hurt or bleeding or were badly damaged. What is effective most of the time, not all the time perhaps, but most of the time with someone who needs to be lowered in stress and anxiety?
I mean, really, most of the time when we get there, just introducing ourselves, you know, I'd let you know who I am, find out who you are, and just say, hey, we're here and we're gonna help you. And you know, you don't need to worry about anything else right now. We're here to help, and we're gonna take good care of you, and we're gonna get you where you need to go.
Okay, what are some of, and that's reassuring for us just to hear that. It's that human voice contact reassuring us that you're there to take care of us. And you'll be very good at it. Where do a lot of those paramedic emergencies take place? In the mountains around here, out in the desert?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
You name it. Houses, highways, mountains, back roads.
When we're in the mountains, what are some of the things that we forget as people?
When we're in the mountains?
Right, where accidents can happen. What often happens to those who are either climbing or just spending the day up there around the cliffs, etc.? What types of situations have you come across?
I think the biggest problem that we see with people, we call it in the backcountry, you know, up in the Sierra Nevadas, is just lack of preparedness.
Such as?
Such as improper clothing, not the right equipment, not checking weather, having no idea that there may be a storm front coming in, kind of leaving blindly, leaving a highway and walking on a road, or, you know, walking on a trail and then not having any idea how they got there.
Getting lost in our minds.
Getting lost, it gets dark, and then, you know, where we respond up on the Mount Rose Highway, it's almost 9,000 feet in elevation, and it's a year-round highway. So it allows anyone access up there to a backcountry, super rugged area with absolutely no forethought.
If I were, or any of us out there in the viewing audience, were to make a list, a simple list of what we as Nevadans need to have in our car, because we're dealing with upper desert conditions, lower desert conditions, a desert. What do we really need to have in our car?
What do you need to have in your car?
Right.
Probably, you know, obviously food, water supplies, blankets, just basic first aid kit, things to take care of in a basic emergency with your car. And then
maybe even a pair of boots.
Yeah, right. Proper clothing, that's key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? How many years did you serve all these paramedic years in the Bay Area?
I worked on an ambulance in the Bay Area for 4 years.
Okay, and then?
And then we moved here. And where I worked in the Bay Area was in San Mateo County. And I worked in Redwood City, and we covered Redwood City and East Palo Alto. It was a whole county.
Okay.
At the time, it was the highest murder rate per capita. And after 2 years, I really didn't like my job anymore.
Because of that high murder rate?
Just because of all the violence that was going on. So that was a big push for us to be here.
Okay, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, and kind of revamp.
Okay, and when we come back to the second half, we'd love to know how you became involved in the fire department up at Incline Village, okay? Don't go away, a fascinating story about to follow.
How would you feel if a fire broke out in your home and you couldn't hear the smoke alarm? Especially if it's someone you love. Visit ReadyWasher.com to receive a smoke alarm that is specially designed for the deaf and hard of hearing. These smoke alarms send a wireless signal to a receiver that gives you strobe and vibration notification.
Local fire departments urge everyone to be prepared.
Visit ReadyWasher.com to help assure the safety of your family.
We always knew that when we had another baby, we would love it if I could stay home. The kids shape what we do. Everything's about them. So we had to make a lot of changes. Quick Balance is this really nice feature of the Bank of the West app. The more I check into my balance, the easier it is for me to stay on track. You don't even have to log in. Hold on tight. You're on call, 24/7. Every minute that the app saves me is a minute that I can spend with my family. And that means everything to me.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com. Welcome back to the second portion of Women to Women. We're here with Carol Green, who is a fascinating person with a fascinating background. We're going to return to her story in just a few moments. But I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half. Dr. Kent Gabriel, MD, noted plastic surgeon right here in Carson City. Dr. Gabriel's specialty is microsurgery of the hands. We'd also like to thank the Carson Horseshoe Club in the old historic district of Carson City. If you're thinking about a light breakfast or a light lunch, why not drop in and visit their newly renovated dining room? And last but not least, Bank of the West, right here in Carson City, noted for its customer service. If you walk in, they already know your name, Bank of the West. So let's return to Carol. All right, Carol, I think we kind of left off with you're coming to Nevada, but we really want to find out, because you have truly a very different position for a woman, not as different today as it would have been 15 years ago or even 20 years ago. So how did you make the transition from paramedic into captain of the North Lake Tahoe Fire Department?
When we initially moved here, I was working for the private ambulance company in Reno, which is REMSA.
Okay.
And we were living in Minden at the time, so it was a fairly long commute.
Right.
And I actually started working at the East Fork Fire Protection District for a very short amount of time. I worked there, really liked it, and then Carson City hired, and I ended up getting a job as a firefighter paramedic in Carson City.
Now, when you say, I really liked it, what do you mean? What just kind of captured your heart?
Well, one of the great things about emergency services is most of the people in emergency services probably have ADD. So we like switching and not having the same call the same day every day.
Okay.
So you just never know when you're in the station and a tone goes off what you're going to get.
Attention deficit. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So short attention spans, we like doing kind of high action impact things.
Yes.
And
I'm married to one.
Okay.
Twice, and have a son. Okay, exactly. And you're exactly right. There's a lot of stimulation that's needed in their daily eye contact, energy level. It's amazing.
Right.
And they're very smart. They're very smart people.
Yeah. So.
All right. So that activity, that difference in pattern from day to day, and I think a lot of us can appreciate that. Some of us are more comfortable in a very stable, step-by-step environment, while the rest of us really respond to that, not only the energy level, but the action that comes, the attention that is required, and the impact of something that makes us emotionally involved as well.
Right.
And that's true of ADD. Okay, now, if you are speaking to young women or out there who are listening very intently to what you do, probably what are the best ages to become involved as a paramedic and then later on as a member of a fire department?
Well, obviously, the physical requirements are fairly stringent. So the
and those are what?
Well, we take a physical agility test to get into a fire department, and years ago, I know some departments did have some different requirements for women than men, but that really doesn't happen anymore. And the fire departments I work for all had the same physical requirements for women as men. So you run a physical agility test, which means you're running and you're performing things like dragging hose, pulling up ladders, pike poles, just all sorts of things that you do on a normal fire ground.
Right.
And so your passing time has to be the same passing time as a man's.
All right.
So obviously the younger you get into it, the more fit you are, the easier it is.
Right, the more efficient you are for it. Because you really are a team.
Oh,
and
yeah, 100%.
Right. And one team member can't be lacking or be weak in one area.
Correct.
You all depend on each other all the time.
Right.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. So how do you know if you are approaching that physical stamina that's required? Does somebody kind of say to you, gee, ever think about retiring?
Well,
I don't know.
People do say that to other people in the fire department.
Okay, and sometimes it's a joke, but sometimes it's also, it's kind of an inner circle message.
Right.
That they've been noticing things, maybe.
For me personally, I'm really into fitness, and it's one of the most paramount things in my life.
Right.
And just the thought of letting someone down on a call really keeps me try and stay on top of my game.
Absolutely.
But I also realize as a female on a fire engine that, I'm in a limited time, so I'm very aware. I have 5 years left and I'm going to retire.
Okay.
So,
whereas maybe a man at the same age could go on for another 5 years.
Yeah. It's really dependent on that individual.
And it's an extremely demanding physical awareness that you say you train, you also maintain that training. And the public is so dependent upon you so many times to come right in with that skill immediately.
Right.
And I think when you're a purist, as you are with your job, or I am as a teacher, when we feel that we're no longer making that impact that we want to make, not just for ourselves, but with a team, your colleagues, you're not finished, you're not washed up, but maybe there's another area that you can work and be very valuable.
Right.
And that's a toughie. That's a toughie to come to.
It is.
Yes.
It's really tough in the fire service because the fire service is a family.
Yes.
And, it's very social. And we spend, our department does 48-hour shifts. So we spend 2 days living and working with the same people. And you just have a bond that most people, I think in a normal job, I think they have a bond, but not like the bond that firefighters have.
It's a deep one.
It really is.
What are the details, or maybe not the details, but the framework of a captain?
The framework of a captain is you're basically a direct supervisor to a crew that's working on an incident. And it's not like a major incident. A major incident, a battalion chief will take charge of that call. But you run the day-to-day operations of your fire station.
Okay.
You're in charge of that crew. So it's anywhere from 4 to 6 people. And you're basically middle management, you're the boss. And so on most incidents, the captain runs or is just in charge of most of the calls. So when we go out for a motor vehicle accident and it's nothing that requires like extrication or a lot of extra equipment, then the captain just runs the scene. We're responsible for the safety of everyone involved in the accident as well as on the scene.
Right.
And that's obviously our #1 priority.
So how many years altogether, Carol, do you have, not only as paramedic, but also as a member of the fire department?
A long time. Well, since 1985.
Okay, that is. But how reassuring to the public to know that that kind of experience is on the job.
Yeah.
I mean, I want a veteran at the scene of an accident, at the scene of any combustible situation.
Right.
I don't want a newbie. Okay.
Yeah, I know, but we all have to learn.
We do. But overseeing,
Right.
the oversight that comes from that experienced hand, that level-headed thinking, is what the public really needs to be reassured about so many times.
Yeah.
What's one of the most difficult scenes you've ever come upon?
Oh boy.
Pull one out of the hat.
I know. You know, I would just say that paramedics and firefighters see a lot of things that most people probably couldn't even imagine in their minds. And, you know, I actually, those kind of things, I try not to even think about.
Right.
We talk about them, we work through it. I'm very lucky. My husband's also a firefighter.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah, so we get through it. And then my go-to for me for, you know, debriefing something or just kind of getting rid of stress is sports.
Okay.
So, or getting out in the backcountry or just doing something like that.
That's where the healing process can take place so well.
I agree. Yeah.
I know that if I'm under inordinate stress or there's been something, just one thing after another to deal with, whether it's personal, whether it's public, etc., it's the open air and the fresh air that revives me.
Yep, clearing your mind.
Clearing your mind.
Got to do that.
Okay. Do you have children?
Yeah. Kevin and I have 3 children together. So they are 24, 21, and 20.
All right.
And our oldest daughter is a corpsman in the Coast Guard. So she's kind of following our shoes.
Yes. And the other 2?
The other 2, one is a full-time student right now. Actually, she's going to join the National Guard, and one is employed full-time. When
you work in such a situation as you and Kevin do, how do you raise your children under that kind of umbrella of public service, but also fraught with accidents and situations that call for immediate and paramedic attention, fire department attention?
Right. Well, you know, I mean, we've always been very honest with our kids that, you know, the world is a very difficult place sometimes. And, you know, there's certain things you can control and certain things you can't. And they actually didn't really like us as parents because it's like, yeah, well, we've seen this and we've seen that, and you can't go do this because we've had this call or we've had that call. Right. But I think as far as them being concerned about us coming home, we've just always, I mean, we've been honest about, that there's certain dangers. There's dangers in any job, I guess.
Sure. Some more so than others.
I mean, my family is always on my mind when I'm doing something that's risky. You know, my family's always on my mind. And the most important thing is not only making sure that my crew goes home, but I go home.
Yes.
And that's what we've kind of always told them is, the world can be a little bit crazy, but our number one job is to be here for you guys. So.
And that's what a kid needs to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking also, Carol, how fortunate you are that your husband understands the field that you're in. You understand the field that he's in.
Right.
And that makes a difference when one parent can really step into the shoes of the other for a while. It's very reassuring to children.
Yeah.
To know that even though mom may not be here right today or tomorrow maybe, but dad's right there. He knows what's happening.
Yep.
And that's great. So Carol, I really appreciate, we all do, you're taking the time to come in and share your story with us. It's unusual, and it's also one of gratitude on our part toward you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I hope that you've enjoyed the program as much as I have in getting to know Carol and her family, both on the post and off the post. So we'll be back next week with very special guests. In the meantime, stay well. Have a good evening. Good night.